So today I'm going to share a brief story on how I conquered my depression by changing my body's chemistry. And by the end of my story, I hope to prove that to those who are suffering out there, that there is a way out and it's easier than people may think. So I'll rewind 2 years back when I met Dr. Mike. It was actually prior to meeting Dr. Mike. I was in the throes of a near decade-long depression, which plagued me throughout high school and college. It was debilitating, and for those who don't understand what depression is, I would describe it as being prolonged sadness, hopelessness, indifference, and it's analogous to having a 300-pound gorilla latched onto your back. And in my case, it was weighing me down on a daily basis. There was no end in sight, and it was just suffocating my will to live. The worst part about it was the fact that there was no rhyme or reason for why I was depressed. I lived a pretty healthy lifestyle. My parents, we grew up eating organically. I was an athlete. So it was confusing, and I was embarrassed and didn't really feel comfortable sharing with anyone. So eventually my family took notice, and we took preventative action. I tried the therapy, the antidepressants. I participated in yoga, tried meditation, sensory deprivation. I even went so far as to venture down to the Amazon jungle this is not a joke, I went to Peru to try a potent psychedelic called ayahuasca in hopes of having some sort of mystical breakthrough. My mom was thrilled with that.
Not.
Long story short, though some of these things benefited me in certain areas of my life, it wasn't the end all, and it wasn't the ultimate cure I was looking for. I was still depressed. It was just lingering. So at this point, I didn't have many options left on the table. I either have to accept that I was just going to be depressed for my entire life, cope with it, or end my life, because it was rough. But thankfully, a third option appeared, and that was in the form of a family friend. Her name is Carla Albert. She can't be here today, but she made the recommendation that I look into fundamental medicine and visit Dr. Mike. So, as I said, I had tried everything up until this point. So I was skeptical, but I was willing to give it a shot. So upon meeting Dr. Mike the first time, take a quick sip. Like he said, we talked for a while, and at the end of our conversation, he speculated that my depression was most likely not a byproduct of an emotional trauma, because I really lived a good life. I didn't experience anything that what I would think caused depression, but we gathered that it may have been maybe a biological imbalance of some sort. So the only way to know for sure was to test for it. So we did a series of tests. We tested my blood, urine, gut biome, and to my surprise, I wasn't as healthy as I presumably thought, and the results showed that I had something called leaky gut syndrome, which they'll go into, I'm sure, later on, but essentially what that is intestinal permeability, where food particles weren't actually being absorbed in my intestines, and they were leaking into my bloodstream, which causes an inflammatory response, and it's not good. Also had what Dr. Mike referred to earlier, an MTHFR mutation. I actually had 2 MTHFR mutations. What is that again? That's a long word. I don't even want to try to say it.
That means tetrahydrofolate reductase.
Say that.
Exactly. So like he said earlier, it was limiting my ability to absorb my essential nutrients like B12 and folate, which contribute to the production of these essential neurotransmitters. I also had a pretty severe gluten sensitivity, which I had no idea about. Well, after hearing these findings, for the first time in a long time, I was struck with like a glimpse of hope, because up until this point, I just had no idea why I was feeling the way I was feeling. So the next step was to eliminate and supplement. Dr. Mike put me on a protocol where I would eliminate these inflammatory foods like sugar, some grains, nightshades, and I would supplement with vitamins like methylated folate and glutamine, things that, and certain probiotics that would help heal my gut. I also started the first few weeks eating only green leafy vegetables, healthy fats, nuts, and gradually implementing certain foods like meats and low glycemic fruits into my diet. And to my surprise, something started to change for me. Within a few weeks of starting the protocol, I was experiencing a significant boost in energy. My head felt clear, my senses were sharper. I wasn't really a victim at this point of the constant fatigue I always felt. And I would catch myself smiling, which I never did. And most importantly, I wasn't experiencing these frequent dips in my mood that I was used to. It was really remarkable, and it felt like the veil of depression that was draped over my eyes my entire life just lifted. And I'll say this with a caveat: it wasn't smooth sailing in the beginning. It was definitely difficult making the transition to that diet because a lot of these foods are the staple of many of our diets. These hyper-palatable foods like breads and sugar, we're used to eating, so eliminating that was difficult, but I realized that the few minutes or seconds of mouth pleasure you would experience eating that piece of pizza was not worth me compromising my cognitive health for the long period of time. So it was important that I note that the reason I did start feeling better was because I stuck to the protocol. So the point of my story is this: there are people suffering out there, and I don't think they need to be. If you want to rid yourself of this depressed feeling, I think the first place to look would be within, like Dr. Mike said. It makes sense if your body isn't functioning properly internally. Everything else you try, even in medication, though it will help in the short run, I don't think it's going to cure you of depression for the long term. So I implore you guys, anyone here that knows anyone or is in fact suffering from depression, check themselves out and see someone like Dr. Mike and look into fundamental medicine. And something as simple as a gluten intolerance, which I had, and eliminating gluten really was ultimately what cured me, I feel. That could be the ultimate cure for you. So I can't express enough gratitude and thank you, Dr. Mike, for helping me out over the years. And I think this is important information we need to spread out, and it can really change the world. So thank you.